Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Show. It is Carl. I am joined by Chris Castellani and Chris Klemmer. This is our first show since the Texas Rangers have won the World Series, so let's start there. Congratulations, Texas Rangers.
Bruce Bochy, the greatest manager of my lifetime. He passed Tony La Russa with that victory. I now have Bruce Bochy as the greatest manager I've ever seen personally.
Yeah, and I think to me, even beyond that, not only is this, the first championship for Texas, and look, I mean, if you lived through 2011, this is a very, very well-earned championship for them. But to me, this is one of the great turnarounds in baseball history. I believe that it's the most, last year was the most losses ever for a team that went on to win the World Series the next season. It just shows, one, commitment by the owners and the GM to spend money, and they knew their window. They knew that this farm system had guys like Young and Heim coming up through the system. You supplement that with great players like Seager and Semien, you end up with a world champion pretty quickly. It's not that hard. It's not that hard in baseball. Some teams make it hard.
You said it's not that hard. Nobody's repeated in like 20 since the Yankees. It's like the hardest championship to win.
Oh, no. To win a championship is very hard. To build a competitive product is not as hard as people think.
Did Castellani's volume drop all of a sudden, or is that just me?
I turned his volume down because it was very high.
Okay.
But it won't affect the output in the recording.
That's why you're a pro, Carl. That's why we got the pros working the dials.
Appreciate it. It's been a great season. It's been a long season. And if you told me at multiple points in the season, though, I would have believed you that the Texas Rangers won the World Series.
Yeah.
Right? Because we came in week after week and we would say 1 through 9. And there were plenty of weeks over 26 where they were in the top 5.
Yeah.
They were never one. I believe it was only Rays or Braves were the best team in our power ranking system the entire season.
Yeah, that's right.
But they were competitive. I think they were as high as 2. They were competitive throughout the season. They had that bad stretch, and I think I want to go back to Bochy being the best manager of your life before the playoffs, like where he really stepped up the season. Right? Is they were poopy. They were very bad. They had no pitching. They made big trade deadline moves, and then they fell flat again.
But you got to give them credit for even getting to that point. Like, even if they just made the playoffs this year, it would have been a success for them because they had been so bad the 2 years before. Like, Brucey did change I hate the changing the culture stuff, but this is true to some. Also, it helps when you get talented players. Like, you go out and buy Nathan Eovaldi, you go out and trade for Jordan Montgomery. Obviously, the DeGrom thing didn't work out, but then you trade for Max Scherzer, who was at least decent for them in the regular season. Yeah, I mean, it helps to go get good players. It helps that some players matured, like Josh Jung and Evan Carter. It had kind of a mix of all things, which is kind of cool from a baseball GM standpoint. Is like everything kind of came together at once, which is kind of that's the whole idea, right?
Yeah, and another point about Bochy, too, and you're right. Look, this team, they had a lot of talent, stumbled bad in August and into September. I mean, coughed up the division. There was a period of time where we weren't even sure that they'd make the playoffs. I mean, they were stumbling that bad. The Mariners were kind of surging. But one interesting thing about Bochy is that he's now won 4 world championships. I believe the team that he managed that had the most wins that ended up winning the whole thing was the 2012 Giants, who won only 93. So a lot of those teams are in that 88 to 92 win range. I think that is what makes him an elite manager. It's not like this was some stacked roster where everything went right. This was not some team of destiny, but he knows his players. He knew how to manage the bullpen, which we all knew coming into this postseason was their one weakness. Didn't matter. You have guys like Josh Spores pitching like Mariano Rivera. It's just a perfect combination of a manager who knew what he was doing and a lot of veteran presences in that clubhouse that didn't let things get away when it seemed like they might be going sideways.
All right, nobody pitched. It's fucking Mariano Rivera, kid. Come on. Like, you can't be just throwing that shit out there. What if he's lucky? What if Bochy's just lucky?
No.
4 times?
Chris makes a good point, though. You could probably win some bets. Which World Series team had the most wins that Bruce Bochy managed? And the answer would be the Padres. They won 98. And you wouldn't think of them. You'd think of the Giants or the Rangers. So that's kind of a fun little just bizarre thing that the Giants – but it's an interesting point because the Giants were never that great in the regular season. And this Rangers team –
well, they were in a good – it's a good division. The West beats up on each other. it's hard to go out and rattle off 100.
It's hard to do the same thing in the East. The Yankees did it for a long time, and so I mean, you can do it. The Dodgers have done it. I mean, it can't be that hard. I mean, Dodgers do it every year, so I mean, I don't know if it's impossible.
I mean, the Yankees were doing it when there were multiple 100-loss teams within their division between the Orioles and the Rays. Are you talking about the Yankees in the early 2000s that would show up, just get Cupcake City from? No, I shouldn't be too dramatic about this. But
like I said, it's just kind of a fun footnote into Bruce Bochy's career. I'm not going to litigate the competitive nature of the 2002 American League East, but it's an interesting note.
He's your best manager of all time.
Best manager of my lifetime. Big difference. I'm not 100.
Best manager of all time is who?
Despite what people say here at Barstool.
Who's the best manager of all time to you then? Okay. Conversation for another day. Were you guys satisfied with the playoffs end of the day? The new format then, how about that? You don't like the format and you didn't like the results.
Were lackluster.
Did you guys like the rule changes in the playoffs?
Which ones? Like you mean the pitch clock and the bases and everything? Yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. Made the games over. Yeah.
And and I like in the postseason, no runner on second. I'm actually fine with it in extra innings in the regular season. I know a lot of people hate it. I've come to be okay with it over 162. And I really like the fact that you have that kind of added layer of tension in the postseason, made for a lot of interesting dynamics. But yeah, as a whole, I think we got really good championship series that kind of, or at least competitive. They went 7 games, and we got a great game 1 of the World Series. After that, everything kind of reverted back to what we saw the first few rounds, which is just a lot of non-competitive, kind of sloppy baseball. I have I'm happy with the Rangers winning. Good for them. Happy for that fan base. But as a whole, it was not a great playoff.
The players look tired. Klemmer, the players look more tired these days than they did when you were coming up watching baseball in the 19. Yeah. The players look exhausted.
Just for I was probably baseball sentient in 1987, say. So every year after that, I have some sort of recollection. More tired or no? It's hard to judge. I mean, there's more rounds, so I mean, it just gets to make sense that it would be more tired. I mean, we say that, but Marcus Semien played every single game.
We talked a lot in our last show about changes that could happen to the game, starting pitching matchups to make it more interesting. Personally, I'm very behind anything that has to do with getting the starting pitching matchups back. And this would be like the last point of emphasis I'd have from the playoffs. Like a bullpen game in the playoffs is crazy. I thought it was cool to see Brandon Pfaadt step up, but the fact that he's just the third and last guy on a World Series team is crazy to me. Crazy. And there's a number of reasons behind that.
So let me push back a little, Carl. I don't disagree with you at all. From a historical context, we were on the same page. I just want to provide some historical context. It's important. This isn't the first time it's ever happened. 1987 Twins won the World Series. Their number 1 pitcher was Burt Blyleven, or the number 2 pitcher was Frank Viola. They kind of flip-flopped. Aces, great pitchers, both. The number 3 guy was a guy named Les Straker, who I barely know about, and I was alive. So, you do run into sometimes that happening, but Carl's main point is completely valid, completely true, and it's become, this is the norm, not the exception, where we're seeing bullpen games in the playoffs. There's no business for it. It's awful baseball. It's sloppy. And I also just want to step back and explain myself a little bit. I don't like the playoffs this season, not because the Rangers won. I'm happy the Rangers won. I love seeing a team win their first title. That's awesome. And this team was built the right way. Everything's great. I'm very happy the Rangers won. I'm very happy the Diamondbacks played them. I like these teams a lot. Personally, I just enjoy watching them all year. No problem. I hate the format because it gives the good teams too long of a layoff. I hate the baseball we saw. The first 2 rounds were atrocious. The World Series was at best mediocre. At best, I'm probably being kind. It was just a bad October, and it sucked because I know the 3 of us, and Hubs too, we all went into this thinking all right, let's go. Exciting teams, new teams. This is going to be awesome playoffs. And it sucked. It bummed me out.
Yeah. And, I know you're playing devil's advocate a little bit, but the example you used there, Klemmer, and you'll acknowledge this, is the worst team to ever win the World Series. Like that 87 Twins. Yeah, the top 3.
I'll push back a little, Chris. I don't know if that's true because 4 years later, a lot of those same guys won again. So they can't be that bad.
True. But they had a negative run differential in the regular season. I mean,
and they didn't win 90
They were
games.
not a great, but okay. Yeah, they were an 85 win. It's just in general, teams that win the World Series
Of
have deeper
course.
rotations
You're absolutely right.
than the example that you put. Yeah, no, I mean, it's weird because we've gotten some criticism on here for complaining about the postseason, which I think is kind of whack because, like, I don't know what we're not gonna polish it like it was something great. I think we're disappointed because I think that this year as a whole was a great year in baseball. I think that viewership was up, attendance was up, and you get to this, this final kind of surge here, and it just seemed like the sport as a whole fizzled out. Now, of course, look, if we would have gotten really tightly contested, competitive games deep into October, I think it would have changed things a little bit, but the way it ended, more with a fizzle than with a bang, which is surprising because it was such a great year for the sport. And I think the sport as a whole is in a better place than it's been in a long time. Just not a great October.
It's in a better spot and it continues to improve gradually, incrementally, like a young baseball player almost. Where I think 10 years from now, we're going to look back and remember a really bad time for baseball. Like, I think it just continues to get better is what I should say. Rob Manfred, bad voice crack on the podium and caught some flack. I don't want that to detract that I think Rob Manfred had a great season for the commissioner's office. People love booing commissioners. I don't give a shit. I've been behind Rob Manfred since day one. He's an OG. You said litigator earlier. He's like the original MLB union buster, negotiator. Like, he was the last line of defense for Major League Baseball forever. He was the guy who'd go send in to broker a deal with the players union. He's a guy, he could get a deal done with anybody under any circumstances. He's just a deal man. And now he's the commissioner, and he caught a lot of shit for a long time. Some of it, rightfully so, I guess. I don't know. Let me just take a step back as I'm talking about Manfred. People criticized him at the time for how he handled the Astros scandal, but like, we've moved on pretty quickly from it. So would you, in retrospect, would you still levy the same amount of criticism? We've watched the Astros compete in the World Series. We've watched them compete deep into the playoffs, and it hasn't particularly ruined it too much. We're not too far removed. Was there a better way to handle that?
To me, I've moved so far beyond that where it's like, to answer, it's a tough question to answer. I don't know, Carl. I don't know if there was a better way to handle it. I think even he admitted granting immunity to those guys as quickly as he did was probably the one issue he ran into. But the thing is, I moved on beyond that. And, the Astros, they won the World Series last year. Like, it's everything kind of worked itself out. To me, the one issue I had with Manfred is now solved, which is I thought the labor negotiations and the potential lockout was terrifying for the sport and could have been something that long-term really impacted the game. They found a way to get that settled, did end up admittedly playing that full season in 2022. Now that we're past that with the CBA, I'm all for everything. The rough part is over. Like I said, I think baseball is in a good place. And like, if you're just going to hate on him, then it's just, you just have that kind of blind rage. Like, it's not, there's just going to be those people who are never going to come to his defense. I think it is fair to point out criticisms and flaws, but I think there is just going to be that collection of people just because, as you said, Carl, it's fun to hate commissioners. I like where the sport's at.
I think it's complicated. You asked the question, like, have we moved on from it? Maybe the better question is, should we have moved on from it? Like, the scandal was really swept under the rug, Tim Donaghy style. And is that right? If I'm a Dodgers or a Yankees fan, I'm like, fuck, we should be talking about this all the time. My teams, the teams that I spend good money on and enjoy rooting for, got fucked. And no one cares. And we're supposed to just be okay with it? But if you're the commissioner, your whole job is the greater good of the sport. And for the greater good of the sport, it was best to sweep under the rug. So you have conflicting things here. So like the moral side of me is kind of aghast that we've all just kind of been like, oh no, what, Astros scandal? Who? He giggle. Oh, it's funny. Everyone was doing it. Shut the fuck up. It was a fucking really bad thing that happened. And we should all fucking take account of that. But then the other part of me is like, I'm a baseball fan. Do I want to sit and think about the Astros scandal 24/7? I don't. I want to watch baseball. So it's complicated.
I think it suggests that other teams got caught cheating or had evidence against them cheating with how quickly Manfred moved on. Or I'm not phrasing this correctly. I think it's suggestive of how the Astros were handled. Says that Manfred had more information than commissioner's office, had more understanding of like what sign stealing was going across league wide. Now we're getting very deep on like a tertiary point of what I was trying to say of like a celebratory point of the season. Is rarely in baseball have we been like, you know what? Good year for the commissioner's office.
Good year for the commissioner's office.
It's a good year for the commissioner.
I don't like some of the stuff he's done. I don't like the extra inning thing. I think it's horrible. It's not terrible for the sport. It's not going to ruin baseball, but I don't like having the guy start at second. It's impure to the game, in my opinion. I don't like that he got rid of the DH. We got rid of the pitcher bat. We only have the DH. I don't like that either. But these are just my opinions.
You're in the minority on that one.
But you're also an American League guy, too, who's also like 20-something years old.
True.
Like, I mean, you're, like, you haven't fucking... you got the guy who's 50 years old that was alive when, you know what I mean? When both leagues had it, and now it's gone. I mean, I know most people listening to this are probably in their 20s and 30s, but you got to pay a little homage to those older guys that just got this stripped away from them. It sucks.
I'd be in support of getting rid of the DH if we did it for both leagues, and but the pitchers don't want to hit, and it's just a different game.
We're too far gone now.
Yeah.
It's not this rule staying the way. And I do agree with you. The one issue I always had is having it in one league. Like if you're either have it in both or don't have it in both. And I think where it's at now is great.
We can agree that it does help with game time, and we like faster games.
Oh, I disagree with that, Carl.
So the DH
for years, the National League had a quicker game with having the pitcher bat. It's less offense. In theory, it makes quicker games. That's a fact.
But there's more pitching changes.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Pitch hitters.
No, the National League always had a quicker game than the American League. So that's just wrong. Now it's quicker by a couple minutes, but it's been quicker. Yeah.
I thought the DH. I thought a universal DH would make it faster because there'd be less.
No, you have more offense. You have more guys
changes.
hitting. Think about how quick a sacrifice bunt is. Like that's one pitch typically. National League games are almost always. Now we're talking a matter of minutes, but National League games are almost always quicker than American League games.
Okay, well then what about the 3-batter rule? Does that make the game faster?
Yeah, and that's a good rule.
Yeah. I like that as well. Yeah.
We got inundated with specialists.
So
you'd have 3 pitching changes in an inning. And it's just, as a baseball fan, even someone who loves it like we do, but imagine a casual person sitting down trying to watch the 7th inning of a game that takes a half an hour. What are we doing?
No.
Yeah, but one of the coolest jobs in pro sports for a long time was being the left-handed specialist, the one-out guy.
Jesse Orozco.
Was Randy Myers one? Somebody was. All right, let's look ahead for a second. Congratulations to Texas Rangers. Surprised with their fan base online. They're generally not that happy. Like they felt disrespected most of the year. Texas Rangers fans are unique. Hopefully this lifts you guys up. First World Series championship. You guys are defending champs.
Can I say one more thing about it too?
Stop fucking complaining. As long as I can emphasize it, they got to stop fucking complaining.
They can do everything they want. People can complain. I don't care. Corey Seager is a Hall of Famer in my eyes. Right now. His career, he has to play one more game. He has to play one game next year. If he plays one game next year, blows out his Achilles, and he's gone forever, and I would vote for him in the Hall of Fame.
To me, he's still got a ways to go. Quite a ways to go. I honestly, where I would put Corey Seager at right now is very similar. And he's not going to burn out the way this guy did. But I remember after 2014, everyone's like, oh, dude, Madison Bumgarner, Hall of Famer. No doubt. I mean, he's in his mid-20s, no chance. It's like those innings caught up to him, and fastball velo went way down. I mean, right now, career WAR of 32. I mean, guys have twice as much as that don't make the Hall of Fame sometimes. I do think ultimately he gets in because I think he's going to find a way to stay healthy. He's such a good hitter, and he's going to have that boost with the postseason resume. I'm not there yet saying that he's he's a Hall of Famer.
He's signed for 8 more years. He already has 1,000 hits. Right. So if he goes out and has 140 hits a year, has very, let's say 14 homers a year, 140 is a very average production. He still would have almost 300 home runs, 2,000 hits. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got 2 World Series MVPs. I don't see, if his career ends quickly because of injury, then we have a Sandy Koufax situation. We still got to put him in because he's, it's a, what could have been situation. Either way, in my opinion, he would have my imaginary vote.
The injuries just scare me as all. Even this year, as great as he was, he missed 40-something games. And guys typically, when they enter 30, don't get healthier is kind of what scares me about that.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He's in the first year, first year, second year in the absolute massive deal, massive deal. So hamstring's a little fucking tweaked. I don't know. I think there's that element of he played the entire postseason, was phenomenal down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
would you say you're worried about injury concern as far as his Hall of Fame candidacy, or just mean generally? Like, I think maybe he's at that point in his career where like he only needs to play 115 games a year. Like if he repeats this season, this is as good as he needs to be, right?
Yeah, I'm talking more so Hall of Fame candidacy, because he's one of those guys. I feel like Juan Soto is going to be like this too. No matter how deep they get into their careers, no matter how many injuries they have, they're going to roll out of bed and hit. Like,
let me tell you something right now about the difference between Corey Seager and Juan Soto. I'm sorry to cut you off, Chris, because you bring it up, and it's a great fucking point. Corey Seager swings the bat. That's the difference. Juan Soto should be every bit of this. He should be just as good as Corey Seager, or threatening. Or I know you're rolling your eyes and say he is, but I don't think he's not nearly as aggressive. If you're going to tell me he's just he should be putting up his. Juan Soto should have the highest slugging percentage in the league.
Different ways to skin a cat, Carl. Are you the same guy that would have been saying, "Oh, Ted Williams should swing the bat more"? Like, what are we doing?
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
And why are you saying that Juan Soto?
I think because I think he's too patient. I think he's just utterly too patient. He has a lower
walk percentage than Ted Williams.
That's why he's. That's okay. They didn't pitch to Ted Williams.
They're not pitching to Juan Soto. He's in those fucking. I mean, what are we doing?
No, I think Juan Soto absolutely has to be more aggressive.
Juan Soto's awesome. Juan Soto should worry about being Juan Soto.
You like him so much. I should apologize to the audience for not explaining this when I bring up Juan Soto. Klemmer loves Juan Soto.
Me too.
Because he's close to Ted Williams. He's the closest thing Klemmer's seen since Ted Williams.
Yeah, he is. He's not as good as Ted Williams. I'm not saying that. Ted Williams had a better contact rate, for sure. But he's the closest thing, I believe, that we've had to Ted Williams. And Juan Soto, by the way, remember, he just finished his age 24 season.
He's going to be 25. He's going to hit the free agent market at
Juan Soto is unbelievable.
Yeah.
242, 246, 236, 275. Oh, what are those? Last 4 seasons of batting average for Juan Soto.
You're putting two of those years together.
I know.
You're not going to get by me, baby.
I know. He did hit 351, and he did have the Triple Crown slash in 2020.
I said he doesn't have the same contract as Ted Williams, but his lifetime average, if we want to go batting average, is 284 average. I mean, who cares? His on base is 410 lifetime. 421, excuse me. 421. And it's slugging. I mean, he's insane. Lifetime. What are we doing?
I think he could be
better. I'm sure he will be better. He's 24 years old.
I think he will be. That's what's scary. I don't think he's hit his prime yet. That's what's dangerous about him. Yeah.
My point of that was you brought up Corey Seager and Juan Soto together, and when you see Corey Seager play, he's aggressive. He gets in the box. He wants to do his damage. I don't see that with Juan Soto. Juan Soto,
I have pubic hair older than Juan Soto.
There's a little leveling here, where I think a little leveling would move Juan Soto forward.
He's going to be incredible. Juan Soto, that's not I have no problems with Juan Soto. Corey Seager.
What team does he play for next year? Is he playing for the Padres? Is he playing for the Padres or the Yankees?
Padres.
I think he's gone. I think there's the news that came out last week where the Padres had to take out a $50 million loan just to cover payroll.
Yeah, that's right. They're broke.
He's gone. The question is, where does he go? And Yankees make sense. I think you open it up even from there, Carl. I think there's a lot of teams that could be in the Mets. I think could be in the mix. I think there's a lot of teams. Maybe if Chris's Tigers are going to pony up. The thing is, you're getting a guy in a walk year. But remember, the Red Sox, when they got Pedro Martinez, he was in a walk year. And before that season started, Dan Duquette locked him up for 7 years. That's what you got to do.
Well, I was just a Mookie Betts the same way.
Yep.
Same thing happened to Mookie. Yeah. I think the only way he gets traded is if there is something like that in place. Because I don't think you're not going to dump your farm system for 1 year as good as he is. I think it's going to be one of those guaranteed trade and extension moves.
Who's your World Series pick for 2024? I'll do mine first. Whoever gets Shohei Ohtani.
No, I don't know. He's not going to pitch. I almost think Shohei Ohtani is like a 2026 move.
I mean, it's okay. This is so simple, but to me, because the postseason is such a crapshoot, like I believe the best team next year going into October will be the Atlanta Braves again. I think that they have developed this system where they're going to be similar to Dodgers, this 100-win team every year, and they're going to be fine going into October knowing they probably have the best roster, much like they did this year. I don't know if they'll win it because I don't know if they're going to be as good next year as they were this year. But to me, on paper, they'll have the best roster, assuming they stay relatively healthy. I feel like by default, you kind of have to choose.
You put a gun to my head right now and said, who's going to win the World Series next year? You have to decide. I have to say the Atlanta Braves for exactly the reasons Chris just stipulated.
Yeah.
You'd have to. I mean,
why do I have to threaten you with violence?
Because otherwise I'm not going to answer because who knows? It's such a crazy question. Like, or we don't even have the qualifying offers yet. Like, there's just so much we just don't know. But yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah, no, it's a horrible, dude. Trust me. I know it's a horrible question. I'm the one asking it. It's a horrendous talking point. Who's going to win the 2024 World Series? But what I wanted to do is transition out of where does Juan Soto end up, where does Shohei end up? You know, the big story is going to 2024. I was going to say I think whoever gets Shohei, because if it's the Dodgers and you put, it goes Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, 1, 2, 3 in your order. You saw in 2 with the Texas Rangers, if there's like a, you know, the White Sox won it in 2005, big small ball movement. Same thing with the Royals when they were competitive and the Giants World Series. Like every time there's, you know, a couple World Series winners or some kind of trend, what's the trend here? And like a takeaway would be the top of their order with the Rangers. There's like, you can't, they didn't have Simeon and Seager hit 3, 4, 4, 5. And like, I thought it's pretty atypical to have them hit 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
So I'm looking into 2024. So I'm fucked up. I'm sorry. I was just looking into 2024. I was like, if you tell me the Dodgers had a 1, 2, 3 with Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts, or I don't know if that's like a takeaway from the World Series of teams looking at lineup construction different, but I thought that was a unique thing about the Rangers.
I mean, I still have, and I know we hammered it this year and we turned out to be completely correct. I still have my serious concerns with the Dodgers rotation. No matter what they do in free agency, I mean, we got the news about Kershaw today. Even if he comes back, who knows what version of him you'll get. You are going to have Walker Buehler back, who I love, and I think is still going to be capable of shoving. But Urias with the legal troubles, and he was a free agent anyway. Who knows what Gonsolin, like what the deal is. And May, I don't think is either. So, I mean, you're going to have a very similar rotation. So you're going to have a very similar outlook to what you had this year with Miller and Sheehan, who I think can be good pitchers, but you got to hope that they take a big step forward. Offensively, they're going to do what they always do in the regular season. They'll win their 90 to 100 games, outslugging teams. But, all of my concerns going forward with that rotation, unless they really make a move, I could see them being in the running.
They're going to make now. You're wrong, Chris. In this, they're going to make so many moves. They only have $125 million in salaries for next year locked up. They're going to go and get Aaron Nola. They're going to go and get Blake Snell. Or some combination thereof, or they're going to make a trade for a pitcher, or maybe they pull out all stops for Juan Soto. I don't know what they're going to do, but I know one thing is they're going to spend a shitload of money. The Dodgers are the team to watch. I think that they know what they need to fix. They're a smart team. They know they need to fix that pitching staff that Chris just talked about, because there's just such major holes there. And as far as Ohtani, I've been saying this for a long time. He spends his off seasons in Seattle, and that's a Mariners team that's this close to making it to the playoffs. You got to wonder if they're going to pull the trigger on some big moves.
Is Ichiro a big fan of Ohtani, or is it the other way around? Which one of them has the fascination with each other?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm sure they both admire each other.
No, there's a connection there where somebody's like a huge admirer, and I apologize for not getting this one correct. Because it was fuck. I like the connection to Seattle. They have the money to spend too, I think.
Yeah. They need that pop in the middle of the lineup. It's one of those things, even with him not pitching next year, that rotation's really good. And young. And they can eat up innings. Service does a good job. The one thing they've been lacking is that kind of thump in the middle of their lineup. I mean, him hitting after J-Rod, can you imagine the year Julio Rodriguez would have? Like the pitches he would see. They were damn close this year. I mean, again, and so that's always been my prediction too. It just kind of my dark horse, just because it's so easy to be like, oh, the Dodgers. Mariners are there. I mean, they were very close to making the playoffs in a division that had the two teams that played in the ALCS. Like, they are right there. Their window of opportunity is open. Go get Ohtani.
I think the Mariners have a better chance of getting Ohtani than the Angels do.
Yes. I don't think – I think he's scrapped the Angels off of his potential options.
By the way, Angels haven't named a manager yet. Something to keep an eye on.
Hey, by the way, the Rangers drafted Wyatt Langford like 3rd, 4th overall this year, and he absolutely dominated. He's dominated pro ball in the Arizona Fall League, and he's behind Evan Carter in their prospect rankings. So they could possibly.
Evan Carter win Rookie of the Year next year. By the way, he's still eligible, which is wild.
Hitting 3rd and 4th in a World Series lineup and not eligible for Rookie of the Year.
I love when guys, this is a baseball nerd statement, I love when guys are either at the beginning or end, so the bookends of their career and have a major role in the World Series. Like, for instance, the 1997 World Series, the cleanup hitter for the Marlins, you'd never guess who it was. It was his last game as a major leaguer.
Charles Johnson.
He was a rookie then.
Oh, Bobby Bonilla.
Darren Dalton. How about that? He was a DH, I believe, and it was a batting cleanup, I believe, for the 1997 Marlins. Game 7 was the last game I ever played. I love shit like that.
Was he a good player?
Darren Dalton was awesome. Yeah, he was a really good catcher for the Phillies. Really was kind of the heartbeat of that 93 Phillies club. And then he was a mid-season trade. He went to the Marlins.
Who was your guys' favorite team from this year? Who was your favorite team? I'll start. Other than, obviously, your own, but I thought the Reds. Reds won me over this year. I loved watching.
My own would be last.
I loved watching. I loved watching Reds fans get excited this year. Like, that was an exciting. That was a cool part of the national storyline. With Cincinnati getting good, the young guys coming up. Yeah, sure. Klemmer, you were obsessed with whether or not it was sustainable and they were going to win a World Series. But just for like a moment, let your hair down, go out, be a bad boy, get fucked for one night. Like, the Cincinnati Reds were that like dirty little slut this year for me.
Yeah. Night came pretty early for them, though, unfortunately, for the dirty little slut. Yeah,
it did. But their future's bright. I honestly, the Diamondbacks were a team I really came to enjoy watching just because I love Corbin Carroll. And I love teams that hadn't been there for a long time that really came along. Outside of my Tigers, obviously, I would say the Phillies postseason run those first few weeks until clock struck midnight, they were a blast. They were steamrolling teams. That offense was red hot. Bryce Harper doing his thing. That was a really tight knit group. And I think, man, I don't know if I said this on this podcast, they're going to take that one to the grave. That felt like their championship. And, did they fumble at those last 2 games? And they'll be back, but they're not going to get any younger. But they'll be good. They'll make
that Phillies team. I was talking with Smitty about it. This year's Phillies team reminded me of the 06 Mets, a team that was the best team of the Final Four, probably. Should have gone there. Would have probably won. Had a really good chance of winning the World Series. Certainly the most talented roster, and they came up short. And I still think about the 06 Mets at least once a week. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
And it always makes me sad. My favorite team to watch this year, Baltimore Orioles. That was just a really fun team to watch. I love seeing them all kind of come together.
Oh, yeah.
That was a blast. It kind of sucks that the season ended so quick for them, but talk about teams coming back. They have the best prospect in all of baseball just waiting in the wings. So that team is legit. I hope they spend some money this year. Go and get some pitching, please. Yeah. But they have maybe the worst owner in baseball, so who knows?
They got slapped in the playoffs.
Yeah. They got slapped in the playoffs because the weakness that we all knew existed was exposed. We came in, that they didn't really address at the deadline. Flaherty doesn't count. And they were relying on guys who did pitch well in the latter half of the season, but lights are too bright for Grayson Rodriguez there. Kramer gets crushed. They're going to have, I don't think they won't have the best offseason, but to me, they're going to have the most intriguing offseason because talk about a window that is very much open. They won 100 games this year in a very tough division. It's there for them. Even they don't need to spend huge. Just get like an Eduardo Rodriguez type. Just bolster your rotation a little bit. You're in pretty good shape. See what Angelos does. But even if they don't do anything, they're set for the next half decade with the system they have.
It just sucks that they're in that division. It's so competitive.
I'm done with the Rays. They bore me. Go away. Yeah, I think so.
I kind of think that division, and I might regret this, is trending downward a little bit. I think a team that is going to have another very intriguing offseason because it'll be interesting to see how they shake things up is the Toronto Blue Jays because something's rotten there. Something isn't working. That core that they assembled that we believed would be this elite core. We thought they would be the Orioles. They would be the team that's winning 100 games. I don't know what kind of shakeup they had. Now, they tried it last season, and it blew up in their face. The Varsho trade and Varsh was not awful, but getting rid of Moreno, getting rid of Gurriel, or I'm not Gurriel, I'm sorry. But getting rid of Moreno, I mean, it was a mess. It was a disaster. And I don't know what they can do right now. I feel like they're kind of locked into what they have, and meaning that they'll probably run it back, win 90 games again, lose a lot.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. There is something that stinks there, and I don't know what it is. I keep every year I say the same thing. Oh, the Blue Jays. This would be the year. This would be the year, and it never is. They do the same thing every year. That core just doesn't work. I don't know. I don't know. It's tough because they're good enough where you can't blow it up, but they're bad enough where you're just wondering what the fuck are they doing.
Yeah.
Do you think the Red Sox will be better next year? They won 7-8 games this year.
Really intriguing. New GM.
Hey, Craig Breslow is the smartest guy in baseball, coming out of the Cubs organization, went to Yale, pitched in the big leagues for a little bit, runs socially in that Theo Jed Hoyer social circle. Supposed to be a very well-respected, incredibly intelligent biomechanic physicist, building NASA-level ship rockets intelligence. Instead, he is doing pitch design strategy. He is now the president in charge of everything?
Yeah. I think president, yeah.
Of the Boston Red Sox. Still win more than 78 games next year, true or false? Yes.
I don't know. Or why do we say true? I don't know. Why? They probably shouldn't.
For some reason, I lean towards false right now because I don't know where John Henry's at right now with his commitment to the Red Sox. A decade ago, they were it was no holds barred trying to compete and win championships. I don't know where they're at right now. And their pitching is still very suspect to me. So, and I'm not below there. It's a good system. I don't know if it's a great system. So right now, for some reason I'd lead towards the under, which is weird, but I don't know what kind of offseason they're going to have.
Trevor Story might kind of stink. He's hurt all year, but that's a rough contract.
What is the contract, Klemmer?
Let's look it up.
Now, as you look that up, Justin Turner won't be coming back, but I like Alex Verdugo, Jarren Duran. I like Yoshida. I love Cassis. I love
Devers. Yeah, and Cassis looked really good that second half.
I didn't even say Trevor Story's name there, too. I like that core a lot. And I think that they spend anyways. They're always active.
Wouldn't shock me if we see Verdugo on the trading block. There's been
Story is signed for 4 more years at $100 million even.
But if he's an all-star for 2 of those seasons.
All-star? Is that what we're doing?
Dude, that's a bad way for me to say, okay, fine. If he has a 130 OPS plus in 2 of those seasons, plays over 150 games in 2 of those 4 seasons, and the Red Sox win the division in 1 of those 4 seasons.
Here's Trevor Story's slash line with the Red Sox. This is over 2 seasons. 227 average, 287 on base, a 398 slug. He's got 19 homers. That's in 2 years.
Okay, it's a bad sign.
It's awful.
Craig Breslow guaranteed that they. Am I saying that correctly? He guaranteed that they'd be competitive in this first season.
They might trade for sale.
AL East.
Interesting.
I would trade for Chris Sale tomorrow. Yeah, I love Chris Sale.
Can't stay on the field. Could be a lethal reliever.
But can he do that though, Chris?
Fucking way he would do that. Do you guys is this Chris Sale going in the? Yeah, that is how he started. When he got drafted in the first season, they called him right up as a reliever. Like, come on, guys. The guy who cut up uniforms. You think the guy who cut up his uniform?
Well, that guy's gone.
Is going to go sit in the? You think he's going to go sit? You think he's going to go sit in the bullpen?
Anymore,
you think he needs to go sit? But do you honestly think Chris? Like this? What I like? Do you think Chris Sale is going to go sit in bullpens?
He's not starting
just for 162 games a year. So. Fucking 51 degrees at Wrigley Field. Go sit in the bullpen, kid. You think he's going to go do that to himself? The guy's made $200 million. He's won Cy Young's World Series.
So then he's a bad teammate then.
There ain't no reliever story.
He can't stay on the field, Carl.
If he can't start, he won't play. What I'm saying.
You know what? You're wrong, Carl, because he has how much money is he making next year? You're damn right he's going to play. $27 million. He's going to play.
Okay, fair. How much time left on his contract?
1 year. So really 1 year. He's not going. I don't think he's going to be top 10 in Cy Young next year. Call it a stretch. So this is 1 year.
But like, say if the Orioles go out and they trade for him, like, is that a good move for the Orioles? Like, are you like, oh, they're going
That would
out?
be
and
interesting, right?
That would be interesting. I don't think they'll trade within division, but they are so big on holding on to their big prospects. You wouldn't need to give up.
The Red Sox would have to give up. No, not prospects. Red Sox have to give money away. No one wants it. This guy he's made 31 starts in 4 years total. He doesn't pitch anymore.
So no, total. Like, no, you meant average. He's averaging
31 starts in 4 years. I mean, I've made as many starts as him in the last few years. Like, what are we doing? And he's not, and he hasn't even been that good over that same stretch. He has a ERA 3.93. He's fine. When he pitches, he's like, okay.
It's okay, yeah.
So you think Craig Braslow's going to trade Chris
I've just heard the rumor a lot. And if you're looking to kind of maybe start fresh, Carl, you did bring up a good point, though. He is like a big personality, like in that clubhouse, for good or for bad. And sometimes when these guys, we start with Steve Carlton, when these great pitchers kind of go south, they're not always the best guys to have around.
He's insane. Chris Sale's insane, and that's for good and that's for bad. That's for good and bad. He punches walls. He screams at the top of he gets upset. He's an upset, angry guy. But starting pitchers can foster, like, that position fosters that attitude. It can foster that attitude, I should say. And baseball's a game where, like, who gives a fuck? The guy wants to go yell and scream and get upset. He's like the best player on the field. So now that he's older,
right?
It's interesting how that would go. Maybe if it's this year, he would go to the bullpen so he could collect that contract. I was talking more generally of like, all right, now this contract's over. No. Like, would he transition himself into this
unless
like
it really worked out
reliever.
For him and he had like a Dennis Eckersley type situation where he becomes dominant?
You see, I think he could. I think because when he's on the mound, the stuff is still there. Like, I think there could be like a way as a reliever. It would be if you can go 1 inning at a time. Dude, we've seen.
That's not what I'm talking about. No shit, he can't. I think he's going to fucking strike people out, dude. I want to trade for him right now. I'm talking about, like, would he do it? Like, is he the type of guy who would do it?
He has an area of 416 since 2019. 17
I still
18
like
record.
him. I don't
He's
give
an
a
average
shit.
pitcher now, guys. That guy we knew is gone.
Yep.
I know, dude, but I don't
you
care.
Should if you're a fan of a team. You want it. He's not healthy.
I mean, I wouldn't make him my primary move, but I don't hate like a little iron in the fire, a little Chris
I don't
Sale
mind it for
iron
a team
in the
like the
fire,
Orioles. If the Red Sox will give up like say $10 million with him, and you give up a double-A bat boy, then sure. But like that's what we're talking about. The Chris Sale we know is gone. Now the only good neuse is it is only 1 year on the deal. So.
You should be a fucking bat boy. You should be a bat boy for the Mets.
Listen, if I showed up for work, once a week, then yeah, I would be the bat boy here at Barstool. But I come to work every day. I'm not. He's not available to pitch every day. No.
At the Met, you should be the bat boy for the New York Mets.
I'm 43 years old. I don't think that would go real.
So what, dude? That's a regular clubhouse job. You should be the bat boy.
The Cubs.
Would you quit? Would you quit Barstool to be the bat boy for the Mets? What if Steve Cohen guaranteed you could be the bat boy for the Mets for the next 30 years?
What am I going to do with the bat boy?
Double your salary, bat boy.
I'm in a position where that's not
with Frank as the manager.
Maybe was the bat boy of the Tigers. He's younger.
I'm surprised I haven't been offered. Yeah, I know. I'll get there.
Why are you surprised you haven't been offered?
I'm kidding. I'm fucking around.
I don't want to be a bat boy. I don't want to be a bat boy.
I wouldn't want to be either.
Boy. I am a bad boy, but I don't want to be a bad boy.
I don't think I'm going to be the bad boy.
So. Clubby is an interesting, Clubby I would consider.
Wait on a bunch of
Clubby is an interesting job. It's not waiting. All they do is play video games now. The dynamics change. I don't want to
play video games a bunch of 24-year-olds.
It's not like before.
I work with 24-year-olds all day here. I'm the bad boy. I'm the Clubby here.
Okay. Well, it's just an idea. Steve Cohen DM me. He likes listening to the show.
He's a big fan of my work. I know he loves Frank.
So. Do you guys have a storyline you want to revisit before we say goodbye to the 2023 season? I'd like to get the power ranking panel together one last time and do 1 through 9 on Sunday if you guys are cool with that.
Sure.
Okay.
What are we ranking?
Yeah. The top 9 teams from 2023. Would you do that or no? Is that a bad show?
I don't think it's anything. I think it's obvious. I think it would. I don't know if it's. I don't know if there's a climber for that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we shouldn't do that then. Then what could we power? I think
next week we would talk about. I think there's enough baseball stuff going on. We don't need to power rank anything. We just talk about stuff, or we could power rank maybe how the teams look after the free agency, and be like, all right, that's kind of fun. Like, all right, the Dodgers no longer have, or the Cubs no longer have Clay Bellinger. Like, where do they? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. The reason I like the power, the reason I like the power ranking is because you have 4 guys, and it's just like the snake draft, the format, and when people to talk and what your point to make and how to argue for stuff. So that's why I like it as the format. But we could change it. We don't have to be ranking shit. It's just a good format for 4 guys.
I like the idea of doing it with the rosters as they currently stand. So, like, let's say the Dodgers go and get Aaron Nola. Maybe that puts them from 4 to 2 or something. You know what I mean? That's kind of fun. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I would like to take next week off from podcasting, at least next week. I'm going to Army Navy next week with my dad. No, not Army Navy. West Point. We're going to West Point. They're hosting Holy Cross or something, or I don't know. This is 3 shows a week. It's a lot. It's a whole lot of shows, and it's been a long season. It's been a good season. It's been a long season, boys. It's been a good season, though. What storyline do you want to revisit
from this year? I guess. Look, I know he's hitting the free agent market now, and that will obviously be a huge sweepstakes, and hopefully he can come back healthy and do what he did. But I don't know if we will ever see a 3-year stretch like what we've just seen from Shohei Ohtani. This is going to be, I believe, his second, arm injury. But regardless of what happens, I think this 21 to 23 run that he had, where he was healthy for the most part, pitching at an elite level, hitting at an elite level, will be remembered as quite possibly the most impressive stretch of baseball by a single player in the history of the game. And I think he'll come back. He'll continue to mash. He's going to end up being in the Hall of Fame. But this particular run, from an individual standpoint, he took over the sport of baseball. And it's such a shame he did it for one of the shittiest organizations in the world. But that, to me, that's one of the main things that stands out about this season, really. And ultimately, the storyline, too, biggest one, just the improvements to the game. I think that's what this season will be remembered for, is the year when baseball kind of turned a corner. They listened to the criticisms. They addressed those criticisms, and I think the game's in a better place for it.
I want to call back to Tim Anderson getting knocked out for a second.
Yeah.
Not great. Horrible look.
Has there been a player, and I think a huge part of it was the year he had, whose reputation was as badly, probably Robin Ventura, whose reputation was that badly damaged
Ventura's
after
reputation was
punched on a baseball field?
I mean, I was around when it happened. People were just, he got his ass whipped by Nolan Ryan.
He was stupid. He was like, what are you doing charging the mound against Nolan Ryan, dude? Like,
Ventura.
You fucking moron.
Yeah, but nobody remembers him anymore as a guy who had like a very good major league career. They just remember as the guy who got put in a headlock by Nolan Ryan.
I don't know. He had a walk-off grand slam in the playoffs. I don't know what we're doing.
He's fucking awesome. He was
incredible
third baseman.
He was a borderline Hall of Famer. Honestly,
I remember. I'll just say I remember him as he's the greatest college baseball player of all time, easily.
He was fantastic with the Mets. So good with the White Sox. Robin Ventura was an incredible player. I know that it's funny to think, Nolan Ryan. Like if you were like a child looking at that or whatever, if you weren't alive then, because you weren't, Chris, you weren't there. But like as someone who lived through Robin Ventura, I would say of things when I think of Robin Ventura, it's like 80th on the list for me. Like Robin Ventura was a very good player for a long time. I think of him as the guy, him and Frank Thomas coming up at the same time with Wilson Alvarez and Jack McDowell and that White Sox team in '93 that went to the LCS. Like that's what I think about when I think of Robin Ventura. And then the Mets.
Yeah, I also think Nolan Ryan beats the shit out of anybody. So part of the story is like how dumb are you? What are you doing? Like of course he drilled you. Go to first base. It's Nolan. You're gonna get a licking if you go out to the mound. Like that's a type of shit. Like it's just funny. It's just funny. The big Texan, like in his, what's he like 44 years old against a young hotshot. It's funnier than it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it was at the time. People kind of laughed at it. No one was like, Robin Ventura is an asshole. It was more like, can you believe this kid had the balls to charge Nolan Ryan? Like, how'd you think this guy wrestles cows in his spare time? Like, how'd you think it was going to end up?
Is there a pitcher? That'd be like Carlos Zambrano. Who's another pitcher like charging them out against? You're just like,
wasn't Randy Myers
dumb.
black belt, and then a fan ran on the field and attacked Randy Myers, and he just basically just like karate chopped him to death, like in front of everyone. He's like, "Duh," and like the guy just like fell down. I was like Mr. Miyagi. And you're like, oh shit, all right, like that's Chargers may gotta be careful.
I would say in the modern age, the first one that comes to mind to me, just because he's such a specimen, and even he's not a starter. Felix Bautista. The guy's a fucking mountain of a man. Like there's throwing 100. I don't care if you got to wear it in your shoulder. Don't charge the mound against that guy.
Amir Garrett.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amir Garrett fought an entire baseball team.
Yes, he did.
So that would be a good rule. That would be a good rule change for next season. Maybe let fighting back into baseball. Don't even drill. Like, why do I have to hit the guy to charge the mound? Can we just declare a duel?
I think in general, we need rivalries back in baseball. And I hope Rangers-Astros can be the start of that. Like, that was some legitimate hatred, which came out in the ALCS. I mean, guys, Brave didn't end up missing games, but that led to suspensions there. I miss that. I miss the early to mid 2000s Yankees Red Sox hate. Everyone's too damn friendly now. Let's bring the intensity back a little bit. Hopefully we can get there with the expanded postseason. That might actually be a good thing. You have more teams fighting for something. Hopefully
this was the whole idea. When the Astros went from the NL to the AL, the whole plan was to have them have a rivalry with the Rangers, and it never really worked until this year. And you saw. And I think, Chris, you're right. I think this could be something that really kind of like carries over moving forward, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're the last two world champions. So it is kind of like Yankees Red Sox there for a minute, where it's like not only are you playing for your division, if you win that division, I mean, you might see yourself in the World Series. That's an interesting point you bring up, because they were never good at the same time until this year. Either the Rangers were quite good and the Astros were terrible, or the Rangers were terrible and the Astros were quite good. Seems like they're finally overlap. Should be fun.
And it was fun for a minute there where people were telling me the Cubs were going to the playoffs. And I was like, no, don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. And people were like, hey, man, are you okay? Like, yeah, what's up? Like, I just thought you'd be more excited about this Cubs team. Nah, just, it is what it is. And say Suzuki dropped just straight up dropped the fly ball. Like, the Cubs didn't go to the playoffs because their right fielder dropped a fly ball. So that's how I'll remember the 2023 season on a personal note. On a professional note, I'll remember it for the power ranking panel, showing up 3 times a week with you knuckleheads. I said it off the top, but I mean it. I thought we did, carrying that narrative about the Rangers all season after having done it an entire year the year before. I was much more prepared for these playoffs, and just on a week-to-week basis of what the big storylines are and what people are talking about. There's 1,000 different ways you guys can do baseball, obviously, and cover it and talk about it. I was just more interested in having good, longer storylines drawn out throughout the season for us to reflect on and talk about as the playoffs came up. And I wanted to be ready for the playoffs, and I thought we were, the playoffs underwhelmed, but I was prepared for them. So that's how I'll remember the season. I was fucking ready to go for those playoffs. Those playoffs were not ready to go for me.
Fair.
Well, wait till next year. Tigers are going to win the Central, so we're going to be in a good place.
I'll post the schedule. We'll figure it out. I think we're going to do one show a week or something, or I got to do some thinking about the schedule. And when I do have that thinking figured out, we'll publish it. Until next time, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. This is a Barstool Baseball Show. Carl joined with Castellani and Klemmer this week, and we'll talk next time. See you guys.